Chapter 24. The Chasm. Anyone who has been injured by a vampire, called Stefano Verdi, back in his human form, you must let me treat you straight away. Vampires can be somewhat tricky. Believe me, you do not want to become infected. The group paused on the bank for a long moment, while Verdi treated the wounded with potions he had been carrying. Lydia remained at the centre of the crowd, facing always towards the gateway. "Okay, let's go, everyone," Harry said, once Verdi had finished treating their wounds. "I don't think we need to be silent, and the lights can stay on." They all resumed their positions around Lydia. Xander had resumed his lookout position in Sophie's arms. They walked across a flat area with little vegetation and dry, sandy soil. They had not gone far before Sophie called out to Harry to stop. "I think Xander can sense something," she explained. "To our left." Harry could hear the stomping of feet in the distance. They were getting closer, and quickly. He could make out a tall shape emerging from the gloom. It was a blob, atop two legs, and then something long and slender reaching up above. It gave a harsh shriek and lunged at the group. As it reached the one light, Harry just had time to see what appeared to be a huge ostrich, taller than Hagrid. Then Hagrid flung himself in its path and tackled it around the neck. It twisted in its grip and hammered its head against the side of Hagrid's. The bird raised its foot to claw at Hagrid, but several stunning spells hit it at once. It staggered, and Hagrid's weight carried it down to the ground. "What the hell was that?" Sophie asked Oddie. "Some kind of dinothiform, such as the giant moa," Oddie began. "It doesn't matter what its name is," Freddie squeaked. "There's more of those terror chickens coming." Two more of the gigantic creatures appeared, bearing down on the group. "Keep a lookout on the other side," Harry barked. The flightless birds were alarming at close quarters, towering over them, with necks which could have reached into the centre of the group. Stunning spells flashed at them from a dozen wands. They had no effect, unless three or more struck at the same time. The first had thrown Hagrid off. He was rising to his knees, but looked groggy. Lavender and Stefano had rushed forward, and were snarling and lashing out with their claws, keeping the birds at bay. Spells shot out from the witches and wizards, but had little effect. Then the three birds ran. They ran not towards them, nor away from them, but circling around them. The ground bounced and shook under their feet. Faster the birds ran, their feet thundering. Faster still until they were hard for the eye to follow. Even faster until they were a blur. Sparks flashed from their feet. The birds glowed more and more brightly, through red and orange and yellow. Then the birds had gone, melded into one form. What surrounded them now was a wall, a tube, a flame. The flames were yellow and white. Their brightness dazzled, their heat scorched. Most of those in the group cowered from the heat. Lydia remained in the centre, facing towards the gateway. The flames roared. Some of them began to cough and gasp. The air was being consumed by the fire. Through a blur of heat haze, they could see McGonagall, Flitwick, and Harry huddled together. Then as one, the three drew themselves up and raised their wands. Facing the wall of fire in the direction Lydia was facing, they struggled to pull aside the flames like parting a curtain. After several attempts and false starts, they ripped open a tear in the fabric of the fire. "Through! Quickly!" Harry shouted over the whoosh of the flames. They rushed through, taking care not to jostle Lydia. They found themselves once more in the open air and drank in lungfuls of it. There was a strong smell of singeing. Sophie's hair was smoking, wisps visible in the fading light. The wall of fire, denied its prey, was dying. Hagrid was on his knees, Verdi tending to a wound on the side of his head. Shona was checking that the others were all right, and lamenting the damage to Sophie's hair. Lydia faced forward, as always. Harry gathered them together and into formation around Lydia once again. He led them off toward the gateway that only Lydia could see. They laboured up a sandy slope like a dune. As they gained the top, they found themselves at the edge of a cliff. They were looking at another cliff, which faced them on the far side of a deep chasm. Do you ever get the feeling the Watcher doesn't want us to get to the gateway? Said Ginny. It's not a problem, said Harry. We can apparate across and take the youngsters' side along. We can't do that here, Head Aura, came Oddie's laconic voice. Otherwise Lydia could have taken us all straight to the gateway. I've got a broom in my backpack, Sophie volunteered. I could take people across. It would take a long time, Ginny mused. How about if 2 people went across, then someone on this side summoned the broom back again? Freddie offered. You can't use summoning on this side of the portal either, they've explained. Magic which involves physical translation relies on something which does not exist in this realm. Lydia might be able to fly, but there's a risk it would distract her from focusing on the gateway. Then I guess we're just going to have to climb down, said Ginny. Lydia walked up from behind them. Watch, she said. She ran over the edge of the sheer cliff. The others rushed to the edge and looked down. Lydia was standing at the bottom, still facing toward the gateway. Arresto momentum seems to work, she called without looking up. There was a whimper from Oddie, a curse word from Dean, and several expressions of surprise and disbelief from the others. Ambrose chose this one well, I think, said Stefano Verdi. Lavender laughed. If you're going to fall, you can do it with much more style than that. At least it doesn't look like she lost her concentration, Harry said. Right, is there anyone here who isn't confident casting Arresto Momentum? Freddie's hand shot up. I'm not very confident at jumping off cliffs either. I'm scared of the ground, at least when it looks like it's going to hit me really hard. I'll take Freddie, Oddie volunteered. I'll carry Xander, said Sophie. My one magic isn't great, Lavender admitted, and it's too far to jump, even as a wolf. Verdi stepped forward. I am proficient with a wand. It would be an honour to assist you, Miss Brown. Okay, said Lavender, then narrowed her eyes at him. You're not likely to bite me while I'm not looking, are you? Verdi smiled. Not in front of these impressionable young people, my dear. Ginny nudged Harry and smirked. Anyone else? Harry asked. McGonagall had her head bowed and was whispering to Flitwick at the back of the group. Professor McGonagall and I will take the leap together, said Flitwick with a gallant flourish. They jumped in pairs, Ginny and Harry going first. Dean and Shona followed, holding hands, wands aloft. The other pairs followed them in rapid succession. Dev went with Christie, separately but at the same time, and Jimmy and Colburn went laughing. Xander clung to Sophie. Being able always to land on your feet was no advantage from that height. They reassembled on the chasm floor and resumed their formation around Lydia. The ground was dry and covered with weeds and short grass. There were clumps of jagged boulders scattered all about. They cast ominous shadows in the wand-light as the party moved. Harry passed a warning to the group to be on their guard. The stands of boulders provided plenty of hiding places for assailants. The group drew closer together. Stefano and Lavender changed into their beast forms in readiness. They made their wary way towards the further cliff face. The cliff face behind them was remarkably featureless. Striped with vertical grooves, it seemed to have risen from the chasm floor along the line of a crack. It looked as though the floor and the wall fit together like pieces of a huge stone jigsaw. The opposite wall had a contrasting character. Time, or something even more fearful, had pockmarked it with holes of varying sizes. What didn't differ was that it too was near vertical. As they drew closer to the precipitous wall, Xander hissed. Harry looked around them, caught a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. There was another, then another. Turning back, he found he had no need to tell the others to be ready. "Spiders!" shrieked Shona. From behind the outcroppings of rock, spiders scurried out. Spiders emerged from the lower holes in the chasm wall. Others appeared in the mouths of the holes further up, then clambered down towards them. Spells of all colours flashed from the ranks of raised wands. Some spiders were the size of dinner plates, others the size of dining tables. Spells threw back the spiders, spells blasted, spells burned. Despite the spells, the spiders continued to swarm towards them. Nobody was casting Lumos to light the scene, but the flashing of the other spells was enough to see by. The bodies of broken and smoking spiders piled up. Their comrades poured over them in relentless waves. The acrid smell of singed and burning hair filled the air. "We need higher ground," Harry shouted. Ginny pointed her arm. "Over there." Harry glanced at where she was pointing, continuing to fire spell after spell. There was a high pile of boulders, just beyond the ring of dead spiders. "Onto those rocks," he shouted to the team. "Lavender, Stefano, help Lydia move sideways." Lydia was standing still, her head tilted back, as she looked up to where the gateway must be. Verdi spoke to her. She nodded. He picked her up and placed her on his glistening black shoulders. Xander ran up Verdi to join her. Lavender led the way to the pile of rocks. They all found it difficult clambering over the shifting pile of dead spiders. Hagrid carried Flitwick, who kept a barrage of spells flashing out before them. The companions took it in turns to clamber up the rocks, then turn to protect their friends who were following. In stages, they made it to the top. "Now what, Harry?" Ginny asked. "They'll just pile up against the rocks until they flood all over us." "I'm thinking," Harry replied. "One good thing, though, this Ron's not here." "Yeah, lucky him," she said. "Safe in his hospital bed with vampire wounds." "Oh, yeah," Harry conceded. "But who could fly up out of this mess?" A memory stirred in Harry's head. A feather. "Dev," Harry called, looking for the Gryffindor student. Dev moved round closer to him. "Head Aura? Can we use levitation spells here?" Harry asked. Dev nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Continuous movement is okay. It's the spells which jump things from one place to another which don't work." Harry thanked him and looked around. "Phileas." "Yes, Harry? Is it possible to levitate yourself?" Flitwick frowned. "You know this, Harry. You can't levitate a person as such. But you can levitate their clothes, and they follow. However, it tends to be unstable. Clothes can shift and even tear. It would be extremely hazardous to try to levitate people all the way up to the top of the cliff face." "It's pretty hazardous staying down here on the rocks," Harry pointed out. "The rocks, Harry!" Ginny exclaimed. "Phileas, can you levitate something you're standing on?" "Strangely, yes, you can. It is one of those things that seems—" the professor began. "Oh, I see what you're suggesting. Look out!" A spider the size of a car made a lunge at them. Hagrid punched it with a fist the size of a bowling ball. McGonagall blasted it into the distance. Hagrid scowled at her. "I knows they're badly behaved," he shouted over the tumult of clicking and clattering, "but there ain't no call for killing like that." She rounded on him. "Professor Hagrid, might I remind you we have students to protect." Hagrid muttered an apology. "Yes," Flitwick continued, "we could carry several people on each boulder if we used the large, flat ones. It won't be easy. I hope we have sufficient numbers of skilled and powerful levitators." "You, me, Ginny and Minerva," said Harry. 4 or 5 to a boulder, quickly." Still blasting and burning spiders, they arranged themselves onto suitable table-like rocks. Harry arranged for Ginny to take Lydia, Sophie and Freddie, along with Xander. They would be the lightest load, though the weight of the rock slab would be more significant. Flitwick took Stefano, Lavender and Hagrid. Harry and McGonagall shared out the remaining companions.